All right, welcome to everyone who is arriving to our event this afternoon. We'll just take a couple breaths to let everyone land. Thank you for joining us this evening for Artist Conversations with the California Society of Printmakers, who will be talking about their current exhibition at Gallery Route 1. This exhibition is part of our Project Space Visiting Artists series and features work from the California Society of Printmakers show Searching for Meaning, which explores climate change and the impacts of extracting resources from the earth, not only on the global ecosystem, but also upon human ecology. This juried exhibition is part of the Global Art Intervention Extraction, Art at the Edge of the Abyss. I'm Shelley Rugg, the gallery coordinator at Gallery Route 1. The conversation today will begin with members of the California Society of Printmakers talking about their work for about 30 minutes. After that, we will open up to the audience for questions. We plan to end the event by 5:30 p.m. For our presentation today, we ask that you please stay muted unless we invite you to unmute. For best viewing, select speaker view from the top right corner of the Zoom viewing screen. We want you to know that we are recording today's presentation for future viewing on our website and YouTube channel. Before we begin the conversation, I would like to introduce Jami Taback, who will talk briefly about the California Society of Printmakers. Welcome, Jami.
Thank you, Shelley. Greetings to all of you, and welcome to Gallery Route 1 in Point Reyes, California. I'm Jami Taback, President of the California Society of Printmakers, an international and the oldest printmaking organization in the country, and I'm proud to represent this group of artists selected by our juror, Dana Harris Seeger. She is the director of the School of Visual Philosophy. It's been a delight to work with Dana. She is a CSP member, and I understand the Artist Laureate of San Jose this year. So we're here today to view and interact with the exhibition Searching for Meaning. This is one of two exhibitions in coordination with Extraction Art on the Edge of the Abyss. Juror Dana Harris Seeger asks, if we can create the meaning that we all search for, how will we exemplify that? And what will it look like? So I approached Gallery Route 1 in Point Reyes because they devote this beautiful space to ecological challenges and the human condition and the environment, and they're open also to visiting artists. And I want to thank Z. Morvitz and Jenny Lynn Hall and Shelley Rugg, as well as Tim Gravison here on video. And thank you for agreeing to work with us to have this interesting exhibit today. My deepest admiration goes to my skilled and very amazing board members, Karen Gallagher-Iverson, Ashley Rodriguez-Reed, and Marilyn Pretorius. All without them, this could not have happened. And I thank you so much for being in the game with me and working like this. CSP has several exhibitions, events, and projects tied to the Global Extraction Initiative. Here is Searching for Meaning, and it is on view till next week, May 9th at Gallery Route 1 here, followed by the exhibition Extraction, Response to the Changing World Environment, on view July 16th through August 15th at the Sanchez Art Center in Pacifica, California. We also have, and I hope that you'll participate in this, a themed portfolio exchange of up to 30 CSP artist members called Extraction on the Margins is to be compiled by the end of 2021. We also plan to continue this dialogue with the Sebastopol Center for the Arts and several other Northern California arts organizations this fall of 2021. The full list of projects and events are on the CSP website. So today we welcome our artists and our esteemed juror, Dana Harris-Seeger, who will speak about the work on view. Welcome, Dana.
Thank you so much, Jami. And thank you to the CSP for inviting me to be the juror for this show. It's quite an honor to jury the caliber of work that I got to judge. It was quite difficult, and I have to say I wasn't able to include everything that I really wanted, but I feel like it's a great example of the work that the CSP members put forth, and I hope that it exemplifies the theme, the searching for meaning, and also the extraction theme. And when I was first approached about the topic, I was struck by the point of standing at the edge of the abyss and looking over and just thinking about, what's down there, what's on the other side, what's coming next. And so searching for meaning seemed like kind of the obvious end result. And I'm excited to see the show as a whole also, and how each artist interpreted that theme. So I'd love to, I had a really great time jurying and reading the statements, kind of getting into the mind of the artists. And since a lot of them are here, it would be I'm excited to hear from their own voice what their work means in terms of this exhibition. And if any of the artists aren't here, then I'll jump in and kind of talk about my interpretations of the work and how it fit with the theme and why I chose it for this show. So I think we can go to the gallery walkthrough and the first artist.
Thank you, Dana.
Yeah.
Shall I just begin?
Yeah, this is Margaret Niven.
Yeah, hi Shelley, hi Jami, and Dana, thank you so much for selecting this piece for the show. This is a solar plate etching, 2 plates, printed one over the other in colors that represent fire. The piece is called Eden, after the first line of a Woody Guthrie song, California is a Garden of Eden, and then also, because of the Paradise Fire. I am in love with walking in the woods near where I live. This is a park in Santa Cruz called Pogo Nip, and I am really terribly concerned about what's happening to our environment through extraction and also our incessant pouring of carbon into the environment, and the fires that have erupted near us recently. I know both Dana and I were evacuated in August, September from our homes. Luckily, we were able to go home. What else to say in a minute? It's important to me. I've been working with the trees and the landscape for a few years now, and I'm taking some of my plates and printing them in these oranges and reds and browns to do with fire.
Yeah, working with you too, if I'm just going to jump in, it's interesting because I have seen your work as an artist, but then also as a peer teaching at MPC, and I was totally struck by the haunting beauty, but also the fear that it really puts into us about what we as humans are doing and the power that we have. And that was one of the reasons why I chose this piece, and I think it's really beautiful and awakening in that sense.
Well, thank you.
So thanks, Margaret.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the images of the fire, that is a real, they're gorgeous and they're frightening, both. Mhm.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, next, let's see. Next is this Linda Yoshizawa? The Woods
Yes.
Beyond. Okay, is she here? If she's not here, I can jump in and talk about, let's see. I had my little notes up here. So a couple of her pieces really struck me, but The Woods Beyond and Mechakucha specifically, because of like the realness of seeing what is right in front of our faces, and it really experiencing a sense of loss and how we try to see through that sense and what is happening. And I feel like being in the woods, being lost in the woods, is a metaphor for searching for that meaning, letting yourself become kind of lost in the state of either mourning or deep emotional trauma. And this piece particularly spoke to me about the light that comes through the woods, and actually having that sense of hope or direction, that we are hopefully moving in the right direction and that we can see past what's right in front of our faces. So I found this a very haunting and beautiful image. There's a lot to say about the resilience of trees and forests, and kind of the what they survive and sustain through our impact, the humans' impact on them. So I found this one particularly enlightening. Okay.
So this is Mary Marsh, Here, Valley Oak.
Hi everyone. Nice to meet you, Dana.
Hi, Mary.
Yeah, here's another tree, although a little bit different tree than we've been talking about. This series is about data mining as an extractive industry. I've become fascinated with the cell towers that are camouflaged as trees. And to me, they represent our need to be constantly connected, and our denial about our personal data that's being collected and sold by different companies, analytics, data analytic companies. And I also think about our complicity in the bigger picture of the tech companies increasing control over a variety of things. And I think about the power use of huge data farms and rare earth extraction as well. So this is a photopolymer gravure, photopolymer intaglio with a photopolymer letterpress as well. And I used my father's old camera to Rolleiflex to take the photo, and then printing each plate, hand printing the intaglio, and hand printing each print, I think felt like an antidote to me to the digital world.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mary.
So now we have Evelyn Klein, Surreal Year, Surreal Sky, Surreal Year.
Hi, Evelyn.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Hi, Dana.
Hi.
This piece, the first day of the pandemic, when I heard what was happening, my first thought was the virus. It's brilliant, the fact that it's something that will cross all boundaries through countries, through everything, through our human body, and there are no boundaries that the virus has been held back. And to me, it is a call to humanity. It's a call, how can we change? How can we stop what we are doing, what we're doing to climate change, immigration, everything that's happening in the world? And up to now, it's been unstoppable. But the virus, this little thing that we cannot see with our naked eye, we were able to stop the world. I have lived in many continents, and I am an immigrant myself. I come from Chile. My parents escaped the Holocaust. I know about flight, about immigration, and it has touched me tremendously. So this piece encompasses, I spent the whole, I teach at Monterey Peninsula College, and printmaking, and of course we closed, we went online, and printmaking is one of the hardest things to teach online, but we were very successful, and it helped me to put out a message. All my students, they needed structure, and it gave us a meaning, talking about searching for meaning. And I spent the whole year, I collected all the pictures.
Excuse me, we have to move on to the next. Thank you very much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Well spoken.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Evelyn.
Next piece is by Janis Driscoll, Which Way, Which Way?
Hi. What I wanted to address was how it feels to be making all of the decisions we are trying to make, trying to figure out which decision to make first, what it feels like when so many different things are going on, threatening us in our environment from so many different directions. So I chose to layer several of my liner cuts that have been printed on Asian papers to give the idea that there's so many problems and there's so many things to work through. One of the images that I use frequently is an animated fence, because the fence moves and perhaps you have a boundary that is there right now, but it won't be there in a few minutes. The other image that I use that that you may not recognize because I've tried to break them apart are the inner shooks that are used by Native people in Alaska, originally for wayfinding, but now many people who travel to Alaska and take road trips to Alaska leave these symbols to show I was here, I am part of you, I care about this place. So what I did was try to combine these things I wanted it to feel rough. The last layer that I used was printed on washi, and I didn't try to make it very smooth because none of this is very smooth, but I tried to.
Excuse me, we're trying to keep this brief. So thank you very much. Well spoken.
Thank you, Janis.
Now we have Barbara Foster, wrapped seeking to mobilize a defense.
If Barbara's not here, then I can jump in. This piece struck me because of the layering of and the juxtaposition of the kind of man-made symbol with the natural tree forms. And she had a few that she submitted. And this one particularly seemed kind of like scales or a skin, something that overlaid on top of the tree. And I mean, oftentimes as humans, we try to imbue things that we see or experience with meaning. And so to me, this image just exemplified that sort of desire for humans to put our own spin or take onto what we see maybe every day and interpret that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have a piece by Robynn Smith entitled August Number 9.
That's glass.
And I think Robyn's here. Yeah, she is. Hi, Robynn.
Really hard with the glass.
Okay, here I am. Hi, everybody, and thank you. Yeah, it's hard with the glass. My work examines the aesthetics of catastrophe, humanity's choices, and repeated mistakes. The colossal catastrophe of the coronavirus is directly related to the destruction of our environment and our collective disregard for social justice. This series, entitled August, mainly because I did it in August, began as a response to the 2019-2020 Australian fire season, with the image of a kookaburra surveying a burned landscape, which you cannot see right now, but it's there. It eventually embraced the US government's response to the Portland protests and our very own CZU lightning complex fire in Santa Cruz County. The August series and this particular print is a linoleum cut print with collage, and this is a technique that has served me well throughout the pandemic. I print dozens of versions of one plate on a multitude of papers in a variety of ways, and then I treat them all as collages, cutting, pasting, and overprinting with a large varied edition of that plate. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have Megan Broughton, Svalbard, 79.75 North Pack Isen.
Hi.
Hi.
Happy to be here with you all. So this is an etching that came about after a residency I did in Svalbard, which is halfway between the north of Norway and the North Pole. And so much of that environment was unknown to me. Nothing about it was familiar. And at one point, the ship we were in was stuck in pack ice for many hours that was not supposed to be that far south so late in the year. And it was shifted there by currents that were disrupted by the Greenland ice sheet melting. It was a very monumental and humbling moment. And I realized, like, you know, I was in that moment and I didn't really understand how ice works or like anything about it really. So I've spent the last year trying to learn more about not only ice as a sort of natural phenomenon, but also having been there and seen the similarities between ice and water interacting and reflecting on sort of that relationship with copper and acid as well, and realizing the interconnections that were happening and sort of processing the loss of that ice during the losses of the pandemic.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Michael O'Shea, Hanjin in, Hanjin out.
Yes, hi. This is a colograph. I think it's marked a collotype, but I make that mistake all the time. It's a photo of a container ship coming into San Francisco Bay, and the one behind it going out of the same type. It came about thinking about our trade deficit and our consumerism, and the fact that I found a parallel between these beautiful container ships from a distance looking like the shelf of a supermarket chain with the products stacked neatly on top with all the brand names out front. So that's the distant view. The close-up view is the bottom half, which is sort of the rusty, corroded part of this great big tank of product that's coming and going. And I'm thinking about our horrible trade deficit, which is roughly between 3 and 4 to 1, depending on the statistics you count, and that's on dollar value of the volume. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Danguole, Rita, Kuolas, Emergence.
Hi, this is a photopolymer etching. As the pandemic made us isolate and stay home, I really felt that I was extremely lucky that my profession as an artist, that I could work at my work and not be kind of disturbed by outside, commitments, socialization, and so this piece kind of, it started with just this grid-like structure that actually expanded into almost like this feeling of, I was so booked into my usual activities that it really, this time that I was basically by myself really allowed me, I think, to, expand my ideas. And I think this piece reflects that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very interesting.
Next, we have Susan Leone Howe, Grass State, #1.
Hello. Thank you, everyone who put the show on. It just really looks lovely. I wish I could have been there. I have a few days left. I might make it. So it's good to be here. I work with a lot of pattern. This started simply by looking at the very small patch of yard lawn. And also then it became something that I could cast shadows on to create new images. But the actual practice of carving that many shapes that work their way into each other was a meditation and a mesmerizing occupation, I should say. I hope that when everyone looks at it, they'll see their own ideas within a pattern. I often look at what's at my feet before I start thinking what's in my head, and that's what this was. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect.
Next, we have a piece by Jane Springwater called Changing with the Tides.
And you can go ahead, Dana.
Okay. Well, similar to what Susan was just saying about the mesmerizing sort of look of kind of relaxing your eyes and not seeing, this piece, like the more I was looking at it and engaging with it, even on a digital screen, it kind of, all these undulations, I started to see things within it. And again, I feel like the more we kind of step back and let our preconceived notions and the meaning that we want to find kind of let go, then the more we'll see and the more connections we'll make that are on the right path versus the path that maybe we want to make happen. And so often as artists and people in general, we have an idea that we want to get across, and it can be frustrating to either not have people see that. And I appreciate the way that just a simple line that's been etched and repeated kind of provides that. So.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have a piece by Holly Downing called Importing Wisdom, Tibetan Bandyan.
That's really
Thank you, everyone. It's so interesting to hear all the artist commentary. This is a mezzotint, so it's quite dark, and it's hand colored with color. And it's really part of basically a 15-year series that are mainly paintings of indigenous textiles. This one is from a trip to the Himalayas, and it's a Tibetan textile. But the series started from some textiles that I was preventing from being cut up by buying them. And I got them to my studio and realized that my decades of working with drapery could be used in talking about my impressions that these traditional indigenous cultures knew how to, and often still know how to live sustainably, and that we should treat them with more respect and maybe learn some things from them. In Peru, there's no plastic bag problem. They carry everything with their hand woven, hand dyed, vegetable dyed textiles.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry for the reflection.
This piece is by Ken Manske. You, I, me, we, us.
You, I, me, we, us. Our fingerprints are tentacled to a biological form. A silhouette presents itself as being both dependent and independent. Humans, like all materials on planet Earth, come from the debris orbiting around our sun 4.5 billion years ago. In recent centuries, we have irresponsibly extracted Earth's resources to construct our built environment. Our obsession with bigger, better, stronger, and cheaper has led to out of control consumption. The result is a reduction of species biodiversity and a hostile takeover of the very things that keep our planet in balance. The question might be, what is your responsibility? What is my responsibility? What is our responsibility in a long-term shared existence with all living things? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Next, we have Lola Fraknoi, Scattered 2.
Hello, my name is Lola Fraknoi, and during the pandemic, I've been working on a series of monoprints that I call Conversations with My Brain. Sometimes focused, sometimes scattered, often mixed with a feeling of uncertainty or fear. These are images of damage, renewal, and hope. Just in our brain, where new neurons and connections can be made, our environment has also the potential to start afresh if we put our brains to it.
Thanks, Lola.
Thank you. So next we have Luz Marina Ruiz, Change.
Yeah, I don't see her here, so I'll jump in. Luz talks about the fractured elements, and I see those as symbolic and contextual in the sense of our current time and place. I love how she goes beyond the edges of the borders. Like as printmakers, often we are stuck with these borders and edges, and I just admired the way that these pieces kind of broke those boundaries, just like you know, we as humans are trying to go find creative solutions to our the problems that we've created ourselves. And I mean, the graphic quality also relates to our humanness, and the kind of the textural elements reminiscent of the earth, and how those things combine, and whether it's, you know, a good combination or a negative combination. I just find all these questions that she's bringing up very intriguing.
Thank you.
Thank you. This piece is by Nanette Wild. It's called Milagros for Times Like These Too.
Hi. Thank you, CSP people and all the Rep Gallery Route 1 people, and Dana and the Codex Foundation for putting together this huge extraction mega event. When I'm looking at the abyss, I'm thinking we need more than a prayer. And so milagros are kind of like prayers or offerings to the spirit world. In Greek, they're called tamata. And it's something that our ancestors, our human ancestors, have been looking to the spirit world for healing and forgiveness and hope. And so that's kind of what I was thinking about in this piece. It's created from a 30-year-old lithograph that was never finished when I was a student, an undergrad student, and I screen printed on top of that. And part of that reason is that I have an acquaintance who has zero waste, absolutely zero waste in their home. And I asked this person to give me lessons on how to do zero waste. And she said, don't buy anything. And so I'm trying to see how far I can get without, in my practice, my art practice, without buying anything, with using all the paper and all the ink and all the pencils that I have currently in my studio.
Thank you.
Nice job, Nanette. That's how it goes.
Joanna Kidd, Flower Creature Book.
You can go ahead, Nina.
Is Joanna here? If she's not here, yeah, thank you so much, Jamie. This book, it was so, like it struck me because the little creatures that she created are kind of like pressings, like if you've ever done flower pressings and you've taken specimens and there they are, but they're kind of like creatures that she's invented and created. And I mean, it just talked about our need as humans to like save things and capture things. I mean, even with with your cell phone and like being somewhere and having to take a picture instead of actually experiencing it. So I just found it, I'm still kind of laughing because it's so true. It's so human, so cute. And I just, yeah, I love it.
Little creature.
Little creatures, yeah. She did a great job.
So next we have another book. It's by Rhiannon Alpers, called Whispering Stones.
Yeah, I love this one too because of the different ways that you can approach it. And I mean, I really love how book artists just go totally beyond the confines again of like what an art piece, what an image can be, and the way that she has this structured, whether you see it from below or see it from above or, open or one page at a time, there's just such a different reading that I feel like it's important to be able to experience it. And sometimes as artists, it's hard to like show people how you want something to be read, how you want them to engage with it. But I feel like this does that on any level that you see it, and interact with it. So I really appreciated that.
Great. So the next piece is by Summer Ventis. It's called Held Breaths 1.
Hi. So broadly, I always talk about my work as being about internal and external landscapes and their intersections. And usually that idea of the internal landscape is a pretty abstract idea. But in this series, Held Breaths, it becomes really, really concrete. I have this whole series of pieces that I'm continuing to work on, just thinking about the kind of tension and anxiety that we've all lived with for the past year, as this idea of a held breath. We're all in this kind of constant state of holding our breath. And by visualizing that held breath as something external to the body, I hope to release some of that tension, both for myself in making the work and for the viewer in viewing it.
Thank you.
Next two pieces are by H.J. Mooij. They're chip reader broken and figure A.
Hi, I hope this helps. I really don't know where to begin, but technically the top print, that's my credit card that, oh, that's the bottom one actually. So yeah, that's my credit card that that's the bottom one. Yeah, so that's my credit card that I inked up and printed. I really liked these chips that were in the card. So I thought that would be a really nice visual experience, but instead of Bank of America, it's Bank of Uranus. And the numbers correlate to some of the science about the planet, but the way it's relevant to the theme of the show, at least one correlation anyways, is the atmosphere of the planet creates this color because it's rich in methane. So I know that's one of the fears of climate change, is that our atmosphere is becoming more rich in methane. So that was kind of the connection there. And then the bottom print, well, that was more about like this crystalline structure of an idea that any of us can have in our minds. And the way that that idea essentially becomes extracted and then grows into a reality. So that's kind of a more broad sense of like, what are we extracting from ourselves on a daily level? And it could be beautiful, but unfortunately, not all of it is that we're witnessing on a global level. So that's what I've got there. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next piece is by Jen Cole. It's called Quiet Lines of This House.
It looks like Jen is here, but
I'm here. Yeah, this piece is it's kind of like the title kind of says it all, because I just found a need for refuge, and it's a monotype with some different layers, lots of layers, and Gompi, and some little collagraph pieces. But it's mostly just about having to find refuge in these times, because there's just so much information that's very sort of traumatizing to experience. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next piece is a series of 9. It's by Karen Gallagher-Iverson. It's called Wine Dark Tides, Point Reyes, Tidal Flats.
Karen, are you still here? Hi.
I'm here. Hi. I guess I'll just start. So I'm the past 3 years during the fire seasons, I've been really struck by the coloration that's happened with the smoky atmosphere, especially through the Bay Area, where in Oakland, we're not actively on fire the past 3 years, but we're completely impacted by all of the tragedy that's around throughout Northern California, to the point that it obscures color. And I find that phenomenon very interesting when you are driving around and there's a shadow that is just neon pink, and how bizarre and mesmerizing and eerie and frightening it is. Small children get unnerved just because it's so unnatural, but at the same time, it has this cartoonish beauty to it that makes me wonder, as time moves on, if we'll slowly become more comfortable with these atmospheric changes and these setting disruptions, that they become a new kind of beauty in our everyday life rather than seen as evidence of some tragedy that we need to escape at all times. Because I have my youngest daughter is only 5, and this is the world she knows now. So
thank you.
Beautiful work. The next piece is by Donna Westerman. It's called Ring of Fire at Briones.
Is Donna here? Well, the thing that struck me about this piece was, first of all, the juxtaposition of the ring, like the pretty harsh glowing ring next to this sort of pastoral landscape, and then reading about her experience and you know what prompted this piece. It's up to artists, like up to us as artists, to tell our stories, but also in a way that can be universally connected with. And I really felt like she kind of gave us that feeling of wanting to have this sort of you know, euphoric experience in the pastoral landscape, but then being jarred by this whatever's happening, you know, and having to see past that that ring of fire that she calls it, that's sometimes brought on by what we as humans are doing, sometimes by events that are out of our control. But I really appreciated that.
Thank you.
Next piece is another artist book by Rhiannon Alpers. This one's called Philosopher's Way.
And go ahead and jump in here, Dana.
Again, I really appreciate Rhiannon's the architecturalness of the books that she presented and the way that they can be read from different viewpoints, which, you know, for an artist working in two-dimensional media is sometimes difficult because you have to present something in one, you know, as a whole in one go. But I really encourage people, and I appreciate, Tim, that you're doing it, you know, showing us from these different angles because of the cutouts and the way that she structured it. You know, however you place yourself, you can see things, you can see new things. And I think that's, again, another goal of artists, or, you know, the call for us to present things in a way that enables people to see things in a different way.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next piece is by Beth Fein. It's called Quarantine Dream.
And this is you too, Dana.
Okay. When I saw this piece, it was kind of everything that I was thinking about while I was coming up with the jurors' perspectives. So I was kind of taken aback because it was like this room and thinking about the isolation of being in quarantine. It's called Quarantine Dream. But also I work with dreams a lot, and sort of memories, and the haziness and the layering really spoke to me. Again, like seeing into a room, but also like who's in the room and what's beyond that, the edges of that, the borders. So it was just, it kind of exemplified that whole search for me.
Great. Thank you. The next piece is by Millie Whipple-Smith Plank. It's called Where the River Flows.
This has been a really rich experience to hear all these different art printmakers, your perspective on your pieces. So I feel really fortunate in being part of the show. This is a woodcut print, used 2 plates to create this image. My work is primarily about biodiversity. As humans, we tend to look at the world, of course, through our eyes, but I'm often intrigued by how animals see the world. And in my, where I live on the Oregon border, water, and everywhere in California, water is super important. Our water is, a lot of it is sent south from here to support the rest of California. So this work is just pretty much about the magic of water, how many animals are dependent upon it, how humanity is dependent upon water. And the otter looking away is kind of a, usually in nature, the otter will be looking right at you. And this was to try to give a feeling that you were there observing the otter who is observing what is happening to the river.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next, Jami Taback is going to talk about her piece, Wayfinding 2.
Hi. Well, this is a collograph, and at first they began as the crisscrossing lines drawn by the children in the detention centers on the border of US and Mexico. I was very struck by their drawings and these lines and have worked on them for 4 years. More recently, I laid the print down and was looking at it, and it took on the look of a map and more topographical. And it had me thinking about how immigrants come in and enter a new city and how do they navigate it and get around and how they accept it culturally. The markings are letterpress and they are destinations, places to go to, and more or less these children's drawings as the origin.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have a piece by Jack Stone. It's called BQ3XE3B.
I'll jump in again. This piece, like a lot of the work in the show has kind of to do with the marks and the meditative quality that printmaking can provide, with either carving or, you know, just line work in general, etching. And so this piece, like I responded a lot to the line quality, kind of like music, either music symbols, but also musical melodies and undulations. And, you know, the more that you look at it, the more you find. And I find also as an artist, sometimes the joy is in what other people can extrapolate from the pieces. And so this piece kind of spoke to me about that, you know, putting forward something that we might feel a certain way, and then having the response from our audience be something that, you know, they can give us something that we never even thought of. And I just appreciated the overlapping nature that art has with music and line quality, and the beauty that was.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I don't see Marilee either, so I'll jump in. Is Marilee
Okay.
here? This piece was, at first, you know, you see all the figures kind of going in different directions, and then there's a purpose to what they're doing. And you know, again, I feel like with all that's been happening over the past year and a half, you know, what we're trying to figure out, where we're going, what we're doing, who we're affecting. So it just spoke to me on that level. Plus I really appreciate anytime an artist can take work outside of the, you know, traditional kind of box and border and make us go in these different directions. So I really appreciated that about Marilee's piece.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next we have Linda Yoshizawa Michukucha.
So just like the first one that we saw of hers with the woods, this one has that sense of loss, of like searching. There's a path, there's a road, there's something that once existed that doesn't exist anymore. And, you know, then what are we going to do about that? Are we going to leave it? Are we going to rebuild? Are we going to remember, you know, how far back does our memory go? Do we keep teaching our children and telling them the stories of what happened so that they don't make the mistakes that we made? It's a pretty heavy piece. It has a lot in it, and it just, yeah, it's pretty heavy.
Thank you.
This next piece is by Arturo Araujo, Nada detrás del espejo, nothing behind the mirror.
Yeah, with this one, I really liked how the piece was sort of flattened, the way that he, I think it's is it a woodcut? Like it seemed almost like a veil was over it, like a lace. There was a lace-like quality to it. And I appreciate how artists can provide that different perspective for us and put these kinds of like flattening the three-dimensionality so that brings more attention to the process that can either obscure or reveal reality, and which can in turn obscure or reveal meaning. So I mean, there's a lot also in that piece as well. That if you can see it up close, it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
It's hard, yeah. There's a lot. It's detailed.
It's really complicated to come to the gallery.
Yeah.
And then the last piece in the show is by Israel Campos, Self-Portrait with Tecpatl.
And then, you know, if 2020 kind of taught us anything, it was to be empathetic of our humanity and other humans. And I appreciate that artists have their unique cultural perspective. I mean, it kind of made me think about my cultural perspective and, you know, how everything I do either informs or is informed by that. And so this piece, both, you know, exquisitely rendered, but also, you know, goes back to what's embedded in our being as humans and where we come from, which can't be denied. And I just really appreciated that about this piece.
So there's a red dot on that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you to everyone for submitting and for putting forth such beautiful work. It was, again, it was challenging to choose, but I feel like it all fits, and the pieces all speak to each other, and I was really happy to be part of it. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Now we would love to open up to everyone who has questions or comments that they'd like to share. So we need to move to gallery view at this point so that we can all see each other.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So I'm interested to ask Karen Gallagher-Iverson how she came up with her unique and unusual process.
Ooh, you know, it started actually with, I used to screen print images onto carbon paper, and then I would use the carbon paper for drawings. And then I realized that I could skip the screen printing of the images onto carbon paper process if I just worked straight into moving pigment onto wax completely. So that's where it started. And then I started using a pochoir process so that I could build up layers of pigment without disturbing the under layers, because each layer of pigment gets fused to the wax. So then you can lay another layer of pigment on top without disturbing the lower layer. So it's purely a pragmatic material choice, but it does have some seductive qualities.
I'm just going to jump in here.
Thank you.
I'm going to jump in here and mention that we're pretty much at time for this event, but since we're just starting the Q&A, let's go ahead and extend it about 15 minutes. So as long as anyone has questions or comments, we'll be here for another 15 minutes. You can just raise your hand like this if you would like to say something. Oh, yes, Margaret, go ahead.
I just want to thank Dana for doing such a fabulous job of selecting the work. It looks wonderful. I'm going to be up there on Saturday to see the show, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it in person. Thanks so much.
Margaret.
Yes, go ahead, Holly.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Dana. And I found the show really, really interesting. Everyone's thoughts and comments. And it's just struck me how many people talked about, well, I know Mary Marsh you talked about, but Dana brought this up a lot, that a lot of the processes are an antidote to our digital age or anxiety or isolation. The mezzotint has always been that for me. But I see, it's so many of you, there's a process that's a lot of what it's about. We share that.
Yeah, totally. As printmakers, I mean, sometimes it's all about the process, right? But then the process can inform, like Karen said, how we do things and the reason why we approach either a subject or a technique.
Right.
Yeah.
Kathy and then Michael.
I was curious, just following up on this idea of process and the moment that all of you artists are in. I was very curious about some of these series and pictures that are responding to this moment. And I was wondering in particular about Lola Fraknoi, about what you said about this Conversations with My Brain series, which is really about hope and repair. And I was just wondering if there are more in that series, or if that series is completed. Does it respond to this COVID moment, and where is it in terms of your process with that series?
You have to unmute yourself, Lola.
Lola,
unmute herself.
There you go.
Okay, I can answer this question. I was gonna say, Dana, why don't you answer it for me? You're so much better at this. No, there's like 40 pieces in this series now, and it just keeps growing and growing. And I just been fascinating with the brain and our ability, the resilience of the brain to change. And this whole new research that shows that the area of creativity in our brain stays the same until the end of our lives. So it's so hopeful to me to understand about the brain and all the research that's being done. And maybe we can bring this hopefulness to other problems in the world. I'm hoping that science can also help us with environment. But as artists also have a role to play in bringing our visions, our loony insecurities and anxieties into the picture, and play a role in this important part of our life.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing how the smallest little things, the little cells are working, and they're, always adapting and finding a way through. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Thank you, Dana.
All right, let's hear what Michael O'Shea would like to say.
Well, just a quick comment. I think this show is really best seen if you can possibly get in to see it if you haven't, because the physicality of this art and the techniques that you can see up close. This is important to get your nose right into this artwork, and it's really hard to do any other way than to get there. So please think about showing up before this goes off the air.
Thanks, Michael.
Mm. All right. Yes, Robyn.
I wanted to respond to that. discussion about process just for a moment. I think that for myself and probably for some other printmakers, printmaking can have, there's so many aspects to it that during the pandemic, it was really comforting to just say, you know, I can't think about anything. I don't want to think about anything. I'm exhausted, I'm depressed, but I'm going to sit down and cut a lino. And, you know, or I'm going to sit down and do something mindless where your hands just go. It's like crocheting or something else. And then eventually the process begins to inform the images, and, you know, our brains get engaged and our hearts get engaged and we become artists again. But I'm also a painter, and I know that when I go to start a painting, I am so damn responsible for every brush stroke. I want to kill myself half the time. But in printmaking, the press takes over, the lino takes over, whatever it is, you can give yourself up and just allow that process to do the work for you. And that's a wonderful thing.
Second that.
Good thought.
All right, anyone else? Yes, Kent, go ahead.
This is directed at Mary Marsh, and I find it funny that the title of the show is In Search of Meaning, and Mary's work has me now searching the landscape for cell phone towers. And I was just curious if you've had any other reactions from that body of work.
Yeah, I I have a lot of friends that are now looking for them for me and letting me know where they are, and yeah, searching for cell phone towers that are trees. And yeah, it was a really great shelter in place activity because my husband Tony and I could go out and photograph these things. And yeah, thanks Ken.
All right, any more questions or comments out there? Looks like we're pretty satiated.
I have a question, Shelley. Do we need reservations to come see the show?
No, the gallery is open Thursday through Sunday. So next Thursday we will be open from 11 to 5, and you can just show up.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, well, I'm going to do my little wrap up reading, and I will say thank you so much for joining us this evening. This exhibition will be up through May 9th, so please visit the gallery and see the works in person, because of course Michael O'Shea says it is a must to see this in person. The gallery is open Thursday through Sunday, 11 to 5, and we are following the pandemic guidelines for retail, so be sure to wear your mask when you come. I would like to give a big shout out to Tim Graveson, Jenny Lynn Hall, and Z Moravitz for being in the gallery and helping us to put on this production today. And if you were moved by today's presentation and want to support the work that Gallery Route 1 does to bring art to the community, then please visit our website and make a donation today. Make a note in the comments that your donation is because of Artist Conversations. And thanks so much for coming, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Thank you, Dana.
Thank you.
All the artists, thank you.
Thank you.